Dr. Alistair Finch was a man obsessed with time, not in the philosophical sense but the mechanical, tyrannical sense. For 20 years, his solitary life had been consumed by the Chronos Device, a tangle of chrome, quartz, and humming quantum processors that filled his entire basement lab. He wasn't trying to time travel, he was trying to stop time. "It's not about changing the past, Clara," he'd told his estranged daughter years ago. "It's about observing the perfect present." Tonight was the night. The air in the lab crackled with latent energy. Alistair, thin and wiry in his lab coat, adjusted a final dial. The main capacitor whined, the sound climbing to a piercing ultrasonic shriek. He held his breath, his finger hovering over the activation switch, a large polished brass button. The machine's light flared, bathing the room in an ethereal blue glow. Then silence. Alistair lowered his hand slowly. The digital clock on the wall, which had been counting down the seconds to activation, was frozen at 0 hours 0 minutes and 1 second. A drop of condensation halfway down a flask of mercury hung perfectly still. He was standing in a tableau of absolute stillness. Time, at least in this space, was dead. A surge of exhilarating, almost terrifying triumph coursed through him. He had done it. He stepped out of the device's immediate field, his leather soles squeaking on the cement floor, the only sound in a world where sound should have been impossible. The air was heavy, the silence oppressive. Alistair walked to the lab door and opened it. He stepped into his house. The setting sun, orange and bruised, was a static painting in the living room window. A dust motes hung motionless in the light beam. He walked past the old wooden dining table. There, a half-finished game of chess, a memento of an argument with Clara, was frozen. The white rook's capture of the Black Knight was immortalized mid-motion. He decided to go outside. Opening the front door, he stepped onto the porch. The street was an oil painting of a moment. The car was mid-turn, its headlights stuck in a perpetual flash. A woman walking her dog was frozen, her foot inches above the pavement, the dog's tail a blur of stillness. He felt an incredible sense of freedom, the ultimate voyeur. He could walk anywhere, touch anything, and no one would ever know. This was his, and his alone. He walked for an hour, exploring the bizarre, stopped world. He saw people laughing, arguing, sneezing, all caught in the blink of an eye. The most fascinating sight was the rain, a sheet of perfect, transparent needles suspended a foot above the ground. Finally, he returned to the silence of his own home. He walked back to the basement, filled with a deep, unsettling satisfaction. As he approached the Chronos device, he noticed something odd. The digital clock, still reading 0 hours 0 minutes and 1 second, was brighter. He dismissed it as a trick of the ambient blue light. He was about to press the reversal button when he saw it. It wasn't the clock. It was the mercury drop on the flask. It had been hanging halfway down when he left. Now it was 2/3 of the way down. His blood turned to ice. Impossible. Time was stopped. He looked around the room frantically. The brass activation switch, the one he had touched an hour ago, was now covered in a faint new layer of dust. And the white rook on the dining room chess set, which he distinctly remembered being suspended mid-capture, was now definitively seated on the Black Knight's square. A horrifying realization dawned on him. The Chronos device hadn't stopped time in the traditional sense. It hadn't stopped the universe. It had stopped him. He was the anomaly, the only thing moving at normal speed. The external world, the one he thought he had paused, was actually moving forward, albeit at an unimaginably slow, almost imperceptible crawl. The device hadn't frozen the world for him. It had drastically accelerated his own subjective experience of time relative to the universe. The 1 hour he had spent exploring the world was, for the universe, less than a nanosecond, but for him, every tick of his own internal biological clock was 1,000 years of universal time. He looked at his hands. They were trembling. His skin looked thinner. His hair felt brittle. The subtle, microscopic march of his own decay was running rampant while the world outside barely crept. He was aging at a rate thousands of times faster than anything around him. He wasn't the master of a frozen world. He was a desperate ghost, a prisoner trapped in the slowest motion movie ever made, rapidly sprinting towards his own extinction. With a surge of panic, he lunged for the reversal button. He slammed his hand down on the brass switch, praying to reverse the terrifying acceleration. The Chronos device whined, the blue light fading as the temporal field collapsed. The moment he pressed the button, the world surged back into its proper pace. The sound of the capacitor dying, the traffic outside, the hum of the refrigerator, all rushed in at once. He stood there panting, alive. A notification pinged from his wrist-mounted chronometer. Temporal field collapse. 0.00000000001 2 seconds elapsed. He looked at his hand. It was fine. No decay. No accelerated aging. He was safe. Relief washed over him, a dizzying, light-headed wave. He had been wrong. The mercury drop must have moved before the field activated. The dust, an illusion of the strange blue light. He hadn't been sped up. The machine had simply worked exactly as intended. He had stopped time for 1 infinitesimal second. He looked at the digital clock on the wall. It now read 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 2 seconds. He walked upstairs, his feet firm on the floor. He opened the fridge and grabbed a glass of water, his heart still pounding. As he raised the glass to his lips, he caught sight of his reflection in the dark refrigerator door. The man staring back was not Dr. Alistair Finch. The face was gaunt, the eyes sunken, the hair a thin white halo. In his subjective hour of frozen time, in that single tiny fraction of a second, he hadn't aged enough for the universe to notice, but he had aged a lifetime for himself. The Chronos device had lied. He dropped the glass. It shattered on the floor, the sound of the world's normal, rushing time finally filling the silence around his 1,000-year-old soul. Please subscribe, everyone.